of the year when we honor and celebrate the changing of the season and the coming of winter, let us pause in this moment to arrive again and join in creating the beloved community. The darkest night of the year has passed, and yet we must wait now for many months to feel the light of the now returning sun upon the land and upon our bodies. When the dark is broad and deep, I am reminded of the words of Wendell Berry, who wrote, "To go in the dark with a light is to know the light. To know the dark, go dark. Go without sight and find that the dark too blooms and sings and is traveled by dark feet and dark wings." As now we light our chalice, let us humbly remember that the dark also has much to teach us, if we will but still our external senses and trust that which lies at the center of our beings, a mystery beyond words. Join me now in singing the third verse of People Come East.
Good morning. When winter's darkness spreads across the land and cold seeps through our thickest coats, we hurry, drawn by the warmth of faces, familiar and new, to where we are welcome. In this place, we are welcome no matter our gender, whom we love, how we speak, or whatever our abilities. We are welcome with laughter in our hearts, or tears in our eyes. Whether we believe in God all of the time, some of the time, or none of the time, we are welcome here. Once I was a stranger and found a deep welcome here. My heart was glad. Each Sunday now, it is renewed again. It is good to be together as a community of open minds, loving hearts, and willing hands. We have a few announcements. There are going to be multiple services on Christmas Eve. That'll be Tuesday. The first service is at 6 p.m., and that'll be a joyful service. The second service will be at 9 p.m., and that will be more contemplative. So hopefully we'll see you at least one, if not both, of those services. We have a starting point teaser today. So after worship, we'll meet in the Seekers Room, or you can find Sherry. Is Sherry here? There she is. You can find Sherry, and she'll help you find the room. We also have an announcement from Bryan. He's going to talk about the curb appeal project. I love it.
Hello, I'm Bryan. My pronouns are he and him. I am a relatively tall, light-skinned, middle-aged man. Wearing a green shirt and blue jeans. I serve as your treasurer, and last week after service, we had a big reveal of our end-of-year giving / capital campaign, if you will. I don't know that we're really calling it a capital campaign, but it is. It's called Operation Curb Appeal, and it is to redo our parking lot in accordance with how we really want it to look. It being the first thing that you guys see when you get here, and the last thing that you see when you leave. We think it's going to make a huge difference. Anyway, so the big announcement for this week that I failed to mention last week is that your pledges and your gifts to this project Curb Appeal are doubled thanks to the endowment. So I mentioned last week that And so this is a grant that's coming from our endowment, which if you really want to know all of the details about how our endowment works, you are welcome to come to talk to me or any of the very esteemed endowment committee members. And I want to call them out by name because it was a unanimous decision and it didn't take a whole lot. And it's not something we've done a lot at this church in terms of using the endowment to invest directly in a capital project that's not a loan, right? And so this is them interpreting our mission of the endowment to be for the future of the church, and this is a major project that helps out with the future of the church for a parking lot that has lasted 40 years and that will last another 40 years. So Paul Barron is the chair, Ann Scarborough, who is out front greeting, Jordan Roberts, who is also with our youth going to the Temple Square and the Magdalene Cathedral downtown, myself as kind of a assigned member, Cinnamon Wolf, who's a board member assigned, and I think that's the committee, right? Okay, yeah. So those 5 people. You don't need to applaud for me, but let's give them a round of applause again. It is a really big duty to, kind of. I shouldn't say it's that big of a job. It's just a very important job to steward our future resources. So there's a board as you exit. We'll turn it around. There's some names there. Feel free to take the pen that's at the bottom and add your own name. If you have given, you can give on Breeze. There's a QR code on that board too that you can use the QR code and it takes you right to the page to give on Breeze. You can also hand me checks or cash as long as there's a note with the cash. I'm totally cool with taking briefcases of cash, as we talked about last week. Yeah, and so even if you can't give today or don't have the exact number in your head that you want to give, I did the same thing. Really, my kid wrote our name on the board, so I didn't know exactly how much we were going to give, but we figured that out, and we've sort of made that commitment, and we'll hunt you down later if your name's on the board and we don't have a gift from you. But anyway, that's a joke. You can laugh at it. We're not really going to hunt you down. Well, I mean, we'll contact you, but hunting you down is a little strong. Anyway, so we appreciate any and all gifts. We've raised $34,000 so far of our $120,000 goal in 1 week. But we do still have a long way to go. So we do want the whole community to contribute. Thanks.
So we have another announcement from Cam. He's going to tell us about the OWL program.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Cameron Adams, the Interim Director of Religious Exploration. My pronouns are he, him. I'm wearing a jacket for some reason, black pants, white guy with kind of a beard. I'll say kind of a beard this time. We'll mention it. So, just a brief announcement for our OWL program. We haven't held anything this year. We've actually... I'll let you announce the exciting news for next month, but we'll be having a new director coming in, and we want that director to be able to come in and hit the ground running. So many of us have come from faith traditions where sex education has come with a lot of guilt or shame, and we do have Our Whole Lives program. I'm just going to read this, kind of a brief description. It provides accurate, developmentally appropriate information about a range of topics, including relationships, gender identity and expression, sexual orientation, sexual health, and cultural influences on sexuality. There is training for the volunteers, and we'd like to just start the program for our youth as soon as we have our volunteers trained up. So, if that is something that anybody is interested in, please contact me, Reverend Lora, or really anybody. They'll get it back to me. But please come talk to me directly, just so we can get a running list of who might be able to go through the trainings as soon as possible. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Cam. And I have the best announcement of all. We have successfully hired a new director of religious exploration. And I would like to introduce you to her. She has come to be introduced to you today. Her name is Lynn. Lynn, why don't you come on up here? I will keep my appropriate distance because I have a runny nose. But we are so happy to have you join us, Lynn. Lynn will be starting with us the first week of January after the new year. And so at that point, we'll be having opportunities for you to meet and greet her. She'll be getting to know all of our children and youth and recruiting, as Cam said, for the Our Whole Lives program, which is a life-saving and uniquely wonderful aspect of our faith tradition to give children, youth, and adults, including silver sneakers style adults, accurate information about how sexuality changes over our lifespan. And so Lynn will be helping with that as well as with all of our religious education programming. So I encourage you to take a moment after worship today to get to know Lynn a little bit and welcome her when she comes back in January. Thank you. Let us take a moment now to welcome one another and greet each other in our online community. I know they can see us. You can't see them, but you can turn around and wave to the camera in the back. And they're waving to us, I'm imagining. So for those of you that don't know, there's probably 15 to 20 families that come every week. So it is a sizable congregation online. And if you find yourself traveling and you want to see what's happening on a Sunday, we encourage you to come to church on Zoom. So please greet one another. I'm going to stay up here because I'm a little sick. So know that I'm not being antisocial. I'm just being cautious today. But please greet one another and enjoy some time of community with one another.
Hello, everyone. If you please open up your hymnal to number 55 and stand as you're willing and able, we'll sing Dark of Winter.
One thing that I should have said in the flurry of the announcements is that my name is Cortney Bouldin, and my pronouns are he and him. I'm a tall man with short hair, a beard, and a green sweater that's mildly festive. This morning, we honor the cycle of the seasons as we celebrate the solstice in North America. This marks the beginning of our winter season, a time when the earth is now closest to the sun and our daylight hours are very short. Our southern hemisphere siblings honor the height of summer. For millennia, people all over the world have marked the passing of time via the cycles of the sun and seasons. While we mostly do not need to fear winter itself in the modern age, fear of the unknown, a sense of hopelessness, or even despair can and is very much present for all of us. Thus, being able to name our fears, seek connection and comfort in one another, and respond with resilience, even joy, remains an enduring call to all of us. The winter solstice is understood by many traditions as a time of deeper healing. that just as the earth rests under her blanket of snow and ice, the animals slumber in their dens, and the seeds under the soil collect energy for the spring to come. We too are invited to reflect, to rest, and to practice being follow, turning our energy inward and letting the deep healing of non-active growth guide our bodies, minds, and spirits. When we are under the depths, where there is no light, we must allow our senses to be our guide. The inner sight of intuition and imagination may shine brighter when the days are short and our skin is covered. Spring will come, as it always does, but for today, we befriend the short days, cold wind, and snowy storms as reminders that we too must allow the surface of our lives to rest in order to make space for what is to take root, unfold, bloom, and bear fruit. As a symbol of our collective commitment to honor the deep, we will now darken the chalice and the sanctuary. Now, I'm going to invite the young and young at heart to come forward. So I have a couple of props. Oh, one more cushion. Thank you. I have a couple of props, and I'll pull forward a little bit. So we're not actually going to read this giant book. Is that okay? Okay, good. Does anybody have a guess of what I have in this box?
Ribbon.
Ribbon? There is a ribbon. I know you know what it is. Because it belongs to you, right? It's a wand. It's a wand. Yeah, and this wand is from a book called Harry Potter. Is everybody familiar with Harry Potter? Is anybody familiar-ish? Ish. So Harry Potter is a series of books written by a person named J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling has a wonderful imagination, but she doesn't know everything. She especially doesn't know when to shut up. But we're going to talk a little bit about her stories. So her stories are largely, does anybody have a guess of what they're about? Do you know who Harry Potter is?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me, Abe?
He's like this guy that knows lots of magic.
A guy that knows lots of magic? Yeah.
Yeah. And tries to defeat Voldemort like many times.
Yeah. So he's a wizard that knows lots of magic, and he has this calling where he has to defeat a dark wizard, right? He's going up against a dark wizard. Do you want to add to it?
And he has a scar on his forehead.
He has a scar on his forehead.
And he survived a death.
Yes, and the scar came from him surviving a death wish. So when he was a child, he was called to this much bigger journey than I think he would have asked for himself. Yeah, what do you have?
He has two heads. One on the back, one on the front.
There is a character, you're right about that. There is a character that has two heads, one on the back and one on the front. That's not Harry, but I know who you're talking about. Yeah, it's one of the professors. So today we're talking about the dark, and there are lots of dark moments in these books. Lots of spells, we talked about that. But when things seem darkest and most lost, there's one charm, one magical spell that gets called on repeatedly. Does anyone besides my daughter know what that is? So I have, Reverend Laura knows. So it's depicted in this picture, if that's a hint.
It's a hippo.
It's a deer. Yeah.
Stag.
A stag. Okay, what is the spell?
Expecto Patronum. Patronum.
Expecto Patronum. Yeah, it's the Patronus charm. The Patronus charm is a spell that calls on a protector, and that's the deer we saw in that last picture. The protector arrives and it looks a bit like a ghost, right?
Yeah, as a ghost.
It's a ghost, but it's a good ghost. It's a helpful ghost, and it drives away some of the scariest things in the story. Yeah, what do you have to say?
They're called Debbink.
They're called Dementors. Yeah, the scariest, baddest monsters are called Dementors.
Yeah.
And what do the Dementors do?
They suck your soul.
Yeah, they make you feel very dark, like your soul's being sucked out.
Yeah, those are Dementors.
Dementors, yeah. Yeah. And so the main characters in the book have the ability to cast this spell to scare the Dementors off. It's a difficult spell to cast. It's not easy. It requires more than just magic. It also requires the caster to picture their happiest moment. I like this idea, and I think it's the kind of magic that you and I can touch. We're not going to wizard school, right? But we still have happiest moments, and we still need light in dark spaces. Can you close your eyes and picture your happiest moment? They can all be the happiest moments. Does anybody want to tell me what they see?
I see Malfoy.
Malfoy? That's a strange happy moment, but I like it. Do you have a happiest moment?
A whale.
A whale? Whales make you happy? Yeah. I bet your Patronus would be a whale, right? Yeah. Can you also look deeply into yourself? Can you see a spark that wants to keep you safe?
No.
I think we all have it. It's a little bit harder to spot, right? Than the happiest moment, but I think it's there. I think there's a spark. The next time you feel a challenging moment or dark approaching, remember that there are lots of people that care about you. And you can always smash your happiest moment together with your spark and see what kind of magic comes out. That's what I have for you. This community, our church, and its many ministries are only possible by the gifts you give of your time, your talent, and your treasure. Many of you pledge monthly to support our work, and for this we are grateful. Your gifts help to ensure that we are able to live our values of love and justice in the world. Part of our ministry at South Valley includes sharing our Sunday worship offerings with a charitable organization that aligns with our principles and values. The Second and Second Coalition is our giving partner for November and December. This coalition of advocates, nonprofit partners, and local faith communities provides emergency shelter and hot meals on the coldest nights to our unhoused neighbors. Please watch Happenings and other social media spaces for opportunities to volunteer this winter. We need your help. Please join me in reading our offertory words. They're printed in your order of service and on the board. We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together, we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gifts. We will now accept the offering. For those at home, you are invited to use the giving link in the online order of service. I invite the ushers to come forward at this time.
I will be singing a piece by Henry Purcell from the late 17th century called What Power Art Thou?, where Cupid beckons the force of cold and winter from the deep. Not wanting to be disturbed, this force is complaining a bit in this song as he shivers against the cold.
thou who from below hast made me rise unwillingly and slow from beds of everlasting snow. See thou not how stiff and wondrous old, far unfit to hear the bitter cold. I can scarcely move or draw my breath, can scarcely move or draw my breath. Let me freeze again. Let me freeze again to death. Let me freeze again to death.
For all we have found the courage to give, may we be truly grateful. May these gifts be a blessing on South Valley and on the Second and Second Coalition. I had the opportunity last Sunday to help at the shelter, and I really encourage you at some point over this winter to volunteer to serve a meal or to greet and support our neighbors who are unhoused this winter through that program. It is well worth your time of investment. And I also just want to say thank you to Cort for carrying so much of the reading this morning, as my voice is a little weak. And I didn't have a chance to properly introduce myself. I'm Reverend Lora Young. My pronouns are she and her. And I am a tall, red-haired woman wearing black and cream this morning, and I have red glasses. So I'm actually going to sit down again and let Cort do the next part of the reading too, so as to save my voice for the next part.
So I've been reading a book. It's called Wintering. The subtitle is The Power of Rest and Retreat in Difficult Times. It's written by Catherine May, and I suspect I'm not the only one that's been reading this book. The hold list at the library is 2.5 months long. I want to share a few passages that I think apply to our current situation, in case you want to add your name to the hold list. So this is Catherine May's words. A surprising cluster of novels and fairy tales are set in the snow. Our knowledge of winter is a fragment of childhood, almost innate. All the careful preparations that animals make to endure the cold, foodless months. Hibernation, migration, deciduous trees dropping leaves. This is no accident. The changes that take place in winter are a kind of alchemy, an enchantment performed by ordinary creatures to survive. Dormice laying on fat to hibernate, swallows navigating to South Africa, trees blazing out the final weeks of autumn. It is all very well to survive the abundant months of spring and summer. But in winter, we witness the full glory of nature's flourishing in lean times. Plants and animals don't fight winter. They don't pretend it's not happening and attempt to carry on, living the same lives they lived in the summer. They prepare. They adapt. They perform extraordinary acts of metamorphosis just to get through. Wintering is a time of withdrawing from the world, maximizing scant resources, carrying out acts of brutal efficiency, and vanishing from sight. But that's where the transformation occurs. Winter is not the death of the life cycle, but its crucible. Today, these are my words. Today we are honoring the winter solstice and the cycles of the sun. There's beauty in every part of nature, even those that are less appreciated. I want to pause for a minute or two and just soak that in. You can close your eyes if you feel comfortable. I'd like to gently call you back. Winter is associated with the cold. It is also associated with the dark. It's a time of the year when night is longer and skies can be cloudy. In Wintering, the central thesis of the book is that the low and dark points of our life are equally important to the high points. The book is one part meandering and one part poignancy. And the author uses the concept of winter to frame her ideas. So this is Catherine May's words again. Everybody winters at one time or another. Some winter over and over again. Wintering is a season in the cold. It is a fallow period in life when you're cut off from the world, feeling rejected, sidelined, blocked from progress, or cast into the role of the outsider. Perhaps it results from an illness or a life event such as bereavement or the birth of a child. Perhaps it comes from a humiliation or a failure. Perhaps you're in a period of transition and have temporarily fallen between two worlds. Some winterings creep up on us slowly, accompanying the protracted death of a relationship, the gradual ratcheting up of caring responsibilities as our parents age, the drip, drip, drip of lost confidence. Some are appallingly sudden, like discovering one day that your skills are considered obsolete, the company you work for has gone bankrupt, or your partner is in love with someone new. However it arrives, wintering is usually involuntary. It's lonely and deeply painful, yet it's also inevitable. We like to imagine that it's possible for life to be one eternal summer, that we have uniquely failed to achieve that for ourselves. If we don't have one full summer, we've uniquely failed to achieve that for ourselves. We dream of an equatorial habit, forever close to the sun, an endless, unvarying high season. But life is not like that. Emotionally, we're prone to stifling summers and low, dark winters, to sudden drops in temperature, to light, shade, and I would add even dark. Winter and the dark come anyway, regardless of what we want.
So once upon a time, in 2016, in fact, I faced a terrible decision. I faced the terrible decision to either stay or go in my marriage. I had been with my spouse for 21 years, and the idea of ending our marriage filled me with the deepest kind of dread. I resisted with all my might the truth that sought to be seen and heard and known in and through my body and my life, until one night I dreamed that I was eating my own heart by staying. And I heard a voice inside me say, "No more." It startled me awake, and I wrote it down so I would not forget. This dream was a part of a series of catalysts, both internal and external, that allowed me to break the surface of my confusion and begin the hard and painful work of confronting, acknowledging, and being accountable to and for the truth of my life, the ways in which I had lost myself and my way, the mistakes I had made, the assumptions I had held, and what would be required of me to find my way home again. What was required of me was to develop a greater sense of trust, of my internal sense of direction, and my capacity for self-reflection. That experience, that period of time of walking on a different path, not filled with light and joy, changed me forever. And now that almost a decade has passed, I am confident that following the nudging of those intuitions led me to greater peace. Not because I have always acted well or even correctly, though I have tried to do so. Mostly because I accept myself as I am. That is perhaps one of the greatest gifts of learning to navigate the dark. For in the dark, you are confronted with all of yourself. It is said in psychological circles that it is the shadow of our lives that drives us. And so thus it is very important for us to occasionally, and with the right set of tools, to enter into the shadow of our lives, to see what we have stored away there in haste or in fear, and to bring it toward the light. At the end of that type of journey, there is only acceptance and compassion. And I often think about this period of time in my life as being modeled every year in the changing of the seasons from dark to light. That as our planet goes from light to dark and back again, it is modeling for us how to navigate the internal phases of our lives, how to negotiate and navigate and emerge not unscathed, but somehow more whole from those shadowy aspects and times of our life. My inner sight was a critical source of guidance in that time, and dreams were an integral part of that journey for me. Now, it could also be said that, of course, dreams are also utterly insignificant, right? Easily forgotten upon waking, and yet we also all know, mostly from personal experience, that sometimes the way we dream is a little different every once in a while. And even if you do not dream, which there are some of us who do not dream, you have probably read a book or watched a movie, sometimes a book that's made into a movie, in which a dream or dreams and visions are central to the story. So whatever it is that you believe dreams are, whether you believe they are vistas of deep meaning to be plumbed for personal insight, indications of a grander spiritual landscape within collective consciousness, or merely random musings of a busy mind seeking to make sense of itself on a nightly basis, dreams do remain an enduring aspect of human culture. So it is good, of course, to acknowledge and accept our own dreamings or lack thereof, and also to be skeptical of dreams of others for fear that we or they will become overly convinced of the correctness of our interpretations. And from those interpretations, then act willfully or even perhaps harmfully towards others in pursuit of an outcome dreamed about overnight. We must be wary and guard against becoming overzealous in the specialness of our dreams or of the dreamer themselves. However, I would like to hold out that a quiet acknowledging of guidance from within to seek a better outcome, one that respects and honors our shared humanity, those seem very much worth paying attention to. In this way, I would offer to you that dreams may be judged as either helpful or harmful based on their impact on real bodies in the real world, just like theologies. A good theology is one that has good impact on real bodies and real people, and a bad dream is one that does not do that. This is an ethic that has been developed by mystical traditions over millennia. In the Jewish tradition, this mystical path is often referred to as the Kabbalah, which arose in the 12th and 13th centuries from a large and longer tradition of mysticisms with roots within the ancient Near East. In this tradition, dreams and visions are held to be signs of an interaction with the imaginal realm, a place we don't often talk about in our modern culture. The imaginal realm is a place where imagination reigns supreme. Unlike in modern culture, where so often we relegate imagination to childhood, the Jewish mystics saw the development and the skillfulness of imagination as critical throughout the entire lifespan. In the imaginal realm, everything that happens is 100% real and 100% the truth. I'll say that again. In the imaginal realm, everything that happens is 100% true and 100% real. The intersection between the imaginal realm and our waking one is the subject of many texts and commentaries and teaching from this tradition. And again, many, if not most, faith traditions around the world have a mystical strand within them, and they often include references to this sort of altered reality. In the imaginal realm, our imagination is the portal through which our connection to that which is beyond our understanding is honed, and the deep mystery and spark of life are elevated and celebrated as a primary source of information. But it is not easy to interpret or act upon what happens in the imaginal realm, because interpretation and implementation can only happen here in the waking world. And here, we are fully human and thus fallible, subject to ego, culture, and the laws of physics. Yet learning to cultivate the imagination, our internal sense of direction and insight, individually and collectively, is what supports and drives every single movement for justice and liberation the world has ever seen. For we cannot get outside of suffering unless we first imagine it to be possible. Dreams, visions, prophecies of a peaceful world order, even the beloved community that we speak of so frequently here in this place, the beloved community which is the ground upon which our ethic of care and compassion is rooted in and through. Each of these requires a well-developed sense of imagination, a sense of imagination that love and justice are the final word. That our dreamings, so to speak, of what the world and our community might be are the core of that spark within us all. Accessing these types of internal landscapes requires letting go of assumptions, preconceived notions, and rationality as the best or only way of gaining knowledge. So, for example, you can imagine that this makes the dreamers and the prophets and the prophetesses, the visionaries, a little dangerous because they do not adhere to notions of rationality, practicality, and taking a long time to wait for justice. So often our prophets and prophetesses, our sages, have been suppressed and denied by those in power. Often the prophet and the words of the prophet are often considered to be weak, invalid, even feminine in nature. These have been used as epithets against visions and dreams so that persecution and execution of anyone who dares to speak truth to power is justified. Over the millennia, this has included people of color, the indigenous peoples of North America, enslaved people, impoverished or disabled people, neurodivergent people, women, children, and anyone who does not fit in a strict gender binary. And yet, our sacred texts are full of the voices and stories of those people exactly. You just sometimes have to read at the margins of the text to see where they were erased. And these texts are foundational to our justice and liberation movements. Our prophets and our prophetesses are the ones who are held to be the best connected to these other sources of knowing. But it is also true that each and every one of us has that spark within. And that imagining ourselves towards something more vibrant and healthy and whole is the collective work of each and every person in this room and beyond. We are all called to develop the prophetic voice within us. Theologian Walter Brueggemann writes in The Prophetic Imagination this about the development of that skill, that the prophet engages in a futuring fantasy. The prophet does not ask if the vision can be implemented, for questions of implementation are of no consequence until the vision can be imagined. The imagination must come before the implementation. Our culture is competent to implement almost anything and to imagine almost nothing. The same royal consciousness that makes it possible to implement anything and everything is the one that shrinks imagination because imagination is a danger. Thus, every totalitarian regime is frightened of the artist. It is the vocation of the prophet to keep alive the ministry of imagination. I love that, don't you? A ministry of imagination. Is that not what we're doing here? Imagining the beloved community. To keep alive the ministry of imagination, he concludes, is to keep on conjuring and proposing future alternatives to the single one the king wants to urge as the only thinkable one. As Unitarian Universalists, our tradition has always been prophetic, has always sought to speak truth to power, has always sought to liberate, to heal, and to save the world from suffering. And our forebears and foresisters have paid the price for this. Sometimes they have been martyred because we insist not just that healing is possible, but that healing, liberation, and salvation must take place on this side of the grave. They must take place in the real world. We are thus called as prophets in this tradition to bring the imagination of justice to bear in the waking world. We are thus often called heretics for our non-belief in the almighty power of a God alone that brings about the alleviation of human suffering. But here, like all the other good Christians that know the truth, and the non-Christians and the pagans and the atheists as well, we know not to wait for such a God. We understand instead that the prophetic must meet the practical and that we are the ones to do it. So, as we enter this dark time, let us not fear the dark that seems to be edging away at our consciousness every day, but instead embrace the opportunities within that darkness to connect, to find comfort in one another, and to continue, despite the challenges, to bring forth the beloved community. I'll be a little bit more specific for those of you that don't like metaphor. As we face the loss of a free press, as we face the loss of a free press, freedom of movement, freedom over our bodies, especially if you were born female, as we face the loss of those freedoms, let us be careful not to let fear and overwhelm be a primary response. Let us instead focus on these things head on, resist cleverly, work collectively, build resilience, find joy where we can, and never let go of the dream of liberation. Every generation of people has been faced with dark nights and terrible winters, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. We must trust that the light will return in time, that in fact it is already on its way. Every generation of humans has found their way through. We know this because we are here. So shall we. And we shall do so by nurturing and tending, creating and sustaining that ministry of imagination. We shall imagine ourselves to be the ones we have been waiting for, and we shall imagine ourselves to be brave, courageous, clear-sighted, and bold enough to live in accordance with the best of our imaginings, the ones that seek to build and sustain friendship, connection, and joy as the necessary tissues of human culture that bind us to one another in the ever-emerging beloved community that we seek. So I will read you again those words from Wendell Berry at the beginning of the service and ask you to consider how the ministry of imagination fulfills them. To go in the dark with a light is to know the light. To know the dark, go dark. Go without sight. And find that the dark too blooms and sings and is traveled by dark feet and dark wings. My friends, let us journey and soar with dark feet and dark wings until we bring that beloved light to its fullness yet again. May it be so, and amen. And as Clarissa Pinkola Estes would say, amen and a little woman. Please rise as you're willing and able. Let's sing each other with our ancestors into this place. knowing that they guide the way for us, just as we guide the way for the generations yet to come. And this is a little tricky song, so listen to Lauren.
Repeats. So, okay, all right. Hello? I think it's working now. Yes, there are a number of repeats in this hymn. So if you open up your hymnal, it's the turquoise one to 1051. Just make note that there are 2 verses in the beginning. There is a repeat after that. And then toward the end of it, there are 4 repetitions toward the end of the hymn. So take a look at that just to get yourself oriented. All right, let's give it a go.
And I will invite my co-reader to come forward, Kim. As you go forth into the ministry of imagination and the next few days of Yuletide and Christmas, we send you off with this poem by Miguel de Unamuno? Yes. Read by myself and Kim. It is called "The Snowfall is So Silent." And we will read it in English and in Spanish. The snowfall is so silent, so slow, bit by bit with delicacy, it settles down on the earth and covers over the fields.
La nieve es silenciosa, cosa lenta, poco a poco y con blandura, reposa sobre la tierra y cobija a la llanura.
The silent snow comes down white and weightless. Snowfall makes no noise. It falls as forgetting falls, flake after flake. It covers the fields gently while frost attacks them with its sudden flashes of white. Covers everything with its pure and silent covering. Not one thing on the ground anywhere escapes it.
Posa la nieve callada, blanca y leve. La nevada no hace ruido. Cae como cae el olvido, copo a copo. Abriga blanda a los campos cuando el hielo los hostiga. Con sus lampos de blancura, cubre a todo con su capa. Pura, silenciosa, no se le escapa en el suelo cosa alguna.
And wherever it falls, it stays, content and gay, for snow does not slip off as rain does. But it stays and sinks in. The flakes are sky flowers, pale lilies from the clouds that wither on earth. They come down blossoming. But then so quickly they are gone. They bloom only on the peak above the mountains and make the earth feel heavier when they die inside.
Donde cae, ahí se queda, leda y leve, pues la nieve no resbala como resbala la lluvia, sino queda y cala. Flores del cielo, los copos, blancos lirios de las nubes, que en el suelo se ajan, bajan floridos, pero quedan pronto derretidos. Florecen solo en la cumbre, sobre las montañas, pesadumbre de la tierra, y en sus entrañas perecen.
Snow, delicate snow that falls with such lightness on the head, on the feelings, come and cover over the sadness that lies always in my reason.
Nieve, blanda nieve, la que cae tan leve sobre la cabeza, sobre el corazón, ven y abriga mi tristeza, la que descansa en razón.
Blessings on your journey in this still yet not white Christmas. But let us ring in this ministry of imaginations by ringing in with our postlude, Deck the Halls.